All right, let's get to the Bound for Glory tickets. As of earlier today, I don't think WrestleTix put this out, but Dobby the Brain Heenan, the legend himself, Dobby the Brain Heenan, did the count. And he has got Bound for Glory sitting at 5,102 tickets sold, 361 tickets remaining out of 5,463. That was earlier today's count, but he has since said that they have opened up more sections. And I get the feeling by Sunday, we're going to be over 6,000 for that show. Bell time inching closer to 7. And I think they will, if they get close to 7, they're going to announce that they broke the record again. I don't know if it'll actually be true, but I just know TNA and I know pro wrestling, and they're going to announce that they broke the record again. So like it could be true, it could be not true. I don't know. But right now, legitimately, there's 5,100 tickets out, and we're still 2 days away. If you remember, we're like 3 days away because it's Sunday. When we were 3 days out for Slammiversary, we were not at 5,100. It was still like in the 4s. And they went out there and hustled. They opened up more tickets. They just had a really good ground game, and they were able to get people into the building. And they had the big AJ Styles surprise. We don't have that surprise at this point. I would not expect any big surprises coming up. Could be wrong. They're moving tickets without a surprise. So I don't even know, like, unless it's AJ again, which I don't think would work as well the second time unless he was wrestling, which the card's full. So that's not going to happen. So I don't know any name out there that they could say is going to be showing up for a special appearance that would actually help move tickets. So I think the card is what the card is. And I think they're going to get over 6,000 with the card as is at this point. But obviously that could change. So, yep, 5,100 tickets sold. Let's see. Squirrel says if TNA drops on CW, the sickos are going to have a fit. So no matter what TNA does, people are just going to give WWE credit. Like, that's the cope, right? It's like, it's not TNA, it's WWE. And there is some truth to that. They are utilizing their partnership to their benefit, and they might be utilizing it so well that they could talk themselves into a television deal, which that's just good business. That's a good partnership, and the partnership is working great. Like Showdown is indicative of that. They did a good rating, and TNA and NXT went 2-2. It essentially served, like, Showdown was a much better go home show than Impact tonight. No, I don't even think it was close. I think Showdown did a lot better job of selling Bound for Glory than Impact did tonight, just by virtue of the show that they had, and it was in front of so many people, and it was like exciting, a lot of energy, which I didn't think that this show had a ton of energy. So, and they made Santana look strong in the end, and Impact did that tonight too with that go home promo that they had. So, we'll see. All right. Io says, it's coming, guys. Silva said patience. Yeah. Lord Silva. Lowell, Boston, Massachusetts, doing a good job. And then Alter the Squirrel says, speaking of BFG tickets, I saw an article that says BFG has a special stage set up in hopes of breaking their attendance record. Surprised there haven't been rumors of the 6-sided ring. Yeah, I don't think that's coming back. The special stage setup means that they're going to use their normal small stage. So I don't think that that's anything in particular. Let's get to some other news. Iconics and Cedric Alexander, their deals are up right after Bound for Glory. Cedric Alexander, I just feel like his deal was announced a couple months ago. Fightful Select reporting both of these deals are up, coming up here at the end of Bound for Glory. It's smart on their part. I don't know who their agents are, but it is smart for them to sign essentially 90-day deal, knowing that there is a TV deal looming for TNA. If TNA inks that TV deal in and around Bound for Glory, which could possibly be, then you would expect that their talent and production budget would go up significantly from what it is right now, which means you could probably squeeze more money out of TNA. That's good business by the wrestlers. That's smart. I could see Cedric ended up in TNA. I don't think TNA has any worries about Iconics going anywhere. And in fact, it seemed Sean Ross Sapp in his writing made it seem like he was pretty confident that they were staying. He didn't say those words, but that's the way that I read it. Like TNA was confident that they can get a deal done. I know they probably want to keep Cedric Alexander. He might be more trouble to keep because I think Tony Khan just likes having guys on his roster. Like he can't get enough of good wrestlers on his roster. The guy. Oh, Jackson Dart's back in. Okay, Giants are good. He just can't get enough of good wrestlers on his roster, which I get, but at a certain point, like you got too many people. So, and then I thought this was interesting. Zeta Steel, who was a WWE ID prospect, was one of the more more sought after prospects out there. She's only like 21 years old. You know, she kind of like resembles Toni Storm a little bit in her look. And people think highly of her. And WWE thought highly of her enough to where they signed her to a WWE ID deal. And it's expiring. And she said she chose not to renew. At the same time, WWE chose not to renew Kylie Ray, who is actively pregnant, which that's fucking disgusting that they did that. They should have just kept her contract alive and paid her throughout the duration of her pregnancy and into her maternity leave. But that's another story. But Zeta is kind of a hot name on the indie scene. And TNA should really be early on people like that as opposed to being late. Like if they can get them in for a decent price and they're early on one of those talents, then maybe they can develop them and keep them around for a little bit. But as Carlos Silva said in that same interview with Jonathan Coachman, he said that if a young talent wanted to go to WWE, he'll help them get there. TNA is an interesting platform because we can bring and provide a new platform for legends that have already been in the game for 10 to 15 years plus. But then we can also help bring the young talent. Look, is that talent at times going to leave? Is that talent going to want to go to WWE if they're younger talent? They are, and I've said it, and Nick knows this, that he'll help them get to WWE. People have took that, calling him all kinds of names, calling him a cuck, and I think that it's just TNA being self-aware of where they stand in the marketplace. When they never really had an official relationship with AEW, but whenever they were more friendly with AEW, Scott D'Amore essentially was saying some of the same things. And in fact, if you look at their roster afterwards, how many talent went to AEW, TNA was not standing in those people's way of going there, and in fact, probably helped broker the deal. Right, because they know that they don't have the resources to be able to pay them what an AEW could pay them. They don't have the resources to pay them what a WWE could pay them. They can't give them the same level of exposure. You're not going to work in front of the same crowds. It is just different. So him saying that is not a bad thing. I think he's just aware of where they stand in the marketplace. He worked in MMA and he was with PFL, and when he was there, I think PFL understood where they stood in the marketplace and they were doing fine. He left and Don Davis has taken over. And I think Don Davis actually wanted to compete with UFC, and they can't get 60,000 people to watch their show on ESPN. It's just weird. But there's another company out there called LFA, the Legacy Fighting Alliance, and they'll sign you, and they actively tell people, like, we will help you get into the UFC. You sign us for X amount of dates, but if UFC comes calling, we'll just let you out of your deal and you can go to UFC. And then what they do is that's part of their plea to get talent to come over there, is like, we can help you get to the big leagues, right? TNA, a little bit different. Like, you're going to work out your contract with TNA. But if you're a young talent, your contract's expiring, they're going to help feed you to the partners versus you go somewhere else, right? And so what he's doing, and I think it's smart, he's putting that out there so that way he can attract young prospects to come to TNA, and they could see TNA as a vehicle to get themselves into WWE. I think that sucks, if you're a TNA fan and you see TNA as being like this destination company. Maybe like you want wrestlers to have dreamed of working for TNA, but that is not reality. That just doesn't exist, right? There's two big dogs in the United States. It's WWE and AEW, and everybody on the TNA roster, with some exceptions to some of the older folks, will want to go to one of those big dogs once their contracts expires. So they know that, right? And so instead of fighting against it, they're just like, yeah, come here. We'll help you get to that point if that's what you want. Or you could be like Eddie Edwards and just stay forever. Or you could go and then come back, which happens a lot, right? I get the feelings at some point, a lot of the TNA talents, Deonna Purrazzo and W. Morrissey, and a lot of once their deals are done with AEW, or like some of the other folks, once their deals are done with TNA, I think they could be welcomed back into the fold, and that'd be pretty easy. Like, I think Josh Alexander is going to be back in TNA one day. I fully believe that. 100%. You don't think Scott D'Amore brokered that deal? Of course he did, right? He had the relationships there. Like, that's his guy. So it just is what it is. I don't think that is a bad thing. I think that is a guy being self-aware and knowing where his company stands in the marketplace. So I think it was, and here's my read on Carlos is he is super honest and probably a little bit too honest. And I think a lot of wrestling fans are used to these people being carny, lying pieces of shit. And he just doesn't appear to be that, but, is what it is. Like, that stuff doesn't bother me. In fact, I kind of find it to be a little bit refreshing that he's just like, he says the quiet part out loud. Like, he understands what he is. He understands what TNA is. And for the longest time, a lot of people didn't really understand what TNA was. Alto the Squirrel says TNA is a good place for young people coming up and older people coming down. Pretty much how it's always been. Yes, it is Memphis wrestling. It is a territory. Essentially a territory. But I think here pretty soon they're going to be a pretty damn successful television show. Will Ty or Madison ever come back to TNA? I think Deonna and Josh definitely will. I could see them coming back. I 100% could see them coming back. Like, Madison's been in and out like 3 or 4 times. Ty has been in and out a couple of times, right? I think they will. Everybody at some point eventually is going to just show back up on TNA's doorstep. Like, the door is always open, especially when you're an alumni, you know. Carlos is very transparent, and he's the opposite of Court Bauer, in other words. Yeah, well, I mean, look, Court didn't want WWE and AEW taking his talent and actively fought against them. But even then, like, he gave up Brian Pillman Jr. and he gave up MJF and Joey Janela and just essentially allowed them to walk in the front door of AEW. He had, they worked both places for a little bit, but he didn't step in the way. He did step in the way of people going to WWE for a little bit. And I think he would still continue to do that because of the nasty relationship that they have, with WWE essentially sabotaging their Tubi deal. So that is understandable, but he's always welcomed people back, right? Like, Low Key came back. Who else? I don't think Joey Janela is ever going back. I think that there's too much. Oh shit! Giants just intercepted Jalen Hurts, and he's going down. This might be a tutty. Hold on. They got him out. Jesus, that was sick. Sorry guys. I got the game up on silent up on the television. But Killer Cross is back now. He's been in and out of AEW a few times, and Matt Riddle's back. Like, he's been in and out of MLW a couple of times. So yeah, like, Hammerstone's back now, right? Like, a lot of the people that were there in the early days of MLW, he's always going to welcome back. And hell, MJF has been on the show a few times recently because he's doing his feud with Mystico. So everybody is welcome back. Everybody can go back home. The prodigal sons have returned.